Okay, in the last couple of days, I've seen a lot of videos about Poke influencers or PokeTubers talking about the same thing. And something I was taught while I was in management a long time ago is that you need to remind people what they're doing wrong, because sometimes they don't realize they're doing something wrong to begin with, right? I can't help but feel, just in case you maybe watch one of their videos but don't really process what's going on right now, that Pokemon is going through a big change. And so I say this in case some people are watching these videos and maybe they just really like these guys but they're not really listening. They're warning you, and I really have no other way to interpret that. For example, all these boxes are rising up in price way too fast. This has to be concerning to some of you, right? We hear reports about how people are spending money carelessly, debt rising, right? I think we're constantly trying to break new levels of debt all the time. And I'm not trying to make this like a political thing or talking about the government, just, these are real world things. We buy Pokemon cards with
money.
Unless you're buying yours with Bitcoin or whatever other coin you might use, power to you, right? And again, I'm not trying to say this to be negative either. It's just what I'm noticing. Something else I've heard a lot of is that they say all rising tides raise all boats, but that doesn't prevent them from sinking. A lot of people get on this boat and end up leaving shortly after or soon after because, there's money to be made. And I think that that's the big thing, is that people are jumping into this blindly right now because they're seeing that there's money to be made and they're gonna get hurt. And it's just not being processed for some of these people that there's a chance that something could potentially go wrong, because right now all these other sets are just spiking up in pricing. So right now, yeah, Pokemon is in a booming state, as they would call it, right? It's booming, so that's got to be a great thing, right? But sometimes, and this is where I'm more concerned, but just because it's booming doesn't mean it's always going to stay there, right? They say what goes up must come down, but I'm looking at it more from a realistic standpoint of what could happen next, right? And Pokemon, the company, is no stranger to, say, overprinting and, essentially destroying the card market, right? That's fine. I just don't think we have enough indicators of that right now to say that that's what's going to happen next. It could. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that that's not what I think is going to happen next. What I'm more worried about, especially with Pokemon Pocket coming out, Surging Sparks getting so much interest and the attention that people always have in the hunt for 151, which, is a great set that people just love to collect, right? It's nostalgic, it's fun. Even though it has pretty bad pull rates, it's just people love it, right? So it doesn't matter, people love it. But all these things bring so much attention to the Pokemon market. So that means there's a lot of attention to the card market side of Pokemon. Why I'm more worried about a bubble is because I'm seeing a lot of the effects that normally come from a bubble. So we're seeing things like rapid price increases, which means, we're seeing significant and sudden price spikes for cards or certain sets, and some of which, without clear underlying reasoning, right? They're all going up, so they gotta go up. They all gotta go up. So I'm just buying all of this because I'm gonna try and make money out of it. But that's be a bad thing. People also have a lot of excessive speculation, which is, a ton of increased focus on short-term game rather than long-term collecting. And based on what I've heard from multiple YouTubers, and I mean, I hear this a lot. I'm also someone that was in that sphere of, I'm going to buy this stuff and I'm going to hold it long term, but I never did, right? I never held a lot of it long term because I said, I want the next big bad thing, in the Pokemon world, at least, when I was more of a collector than now what I'm trying to do in the business side of things. And sooner or later, we're going to run into inflated market cap, which, I don't know if that relates to word for word to Pokemon, but that means that, sooner or later, Pokemon cards are just going to start exceeding realistic valuations, right? Moonbryon is an example that people always refer to, like, it's not worth that much is what a lot of people say, and people will argue it, and that's for you to decide with your wallet, right? You can decide if it's worth it or not. But there are cards that currently exists right now where I'm not really sure it's worth that value. You know, when I look at cards like a set that's more fairly priced, I think of Obsidian Flames, where it's a full-on Charizard set essentially, and because it's so easy to get the Charizards, they're relatively priced, and I don't expect that set to blow up in value maybe in another year or two when it comes closer to the end of its print run, right? And even then, I don't expect like this huge blow up, because probably by then a lot of people have gotten their card, or you know, a lot of people will start buying into it much later, but whatever. The point is that that set seems realistic to me, whereas in when I look at, you know, Twilight Masquerade, and we look at the Greninja, which right now I believe last night I checked it is already, if not, is over $300. It's still relatively fresh. It's gonna get a reprint. We already know there's ETBs coming, you know, and I get it, that's not a box, but I'm sure sooner or later boxes will come too. That just seems so unreal to me, at least right now. You know, it's going to get more attention, and people are just buying into the FOMO. I see a lot of people taking these high-risk investments. It reminds me of when my shop was holding a lot of 151 product, English and Japanese. And keep in mind, we're a small shop. It's not like I'm expecting to see drastic sales. I would have loved to, just so I can, you know, start building that following, you know, having that customer base. But you know, I'm not very good at this yet. I understood that's my fault. But what surprised me is that once all the FOMO kicked in, the sales came like crazy. And it was insane. People were just buying us out, and we actually had to kind of set, you know, restrictions almost to how much we were willing to sell to people, because somebody is just now suddenly realizing, hey, we have this product, and they're going to buy all of it in one shot. I mean, it's such a reoccurring thing that it's happening right now, and I'm not talking to me in particular, but I think Pokemon Center is sold out of Surging Sparks, right? That's something that I'm hearing that's going on right now. And again, that's crazy to me, and I think Opossum Bud said it best. Please don't poop on me. I'm a small channel. Let me grow, please, before you... Don't come after me, please. I like your content. If you want, you can help me grow, so maybe he'll find me one day, and by subscribing or leaving comment, that's a good way to help me out so I can continue to grow. And small plug as always, check out my website. We have Pokemon product. So like he said, Pikachu chase cards don't maintain their price. And in his video, he gave some great examples, and to my memory, some of them don't even retain their value in hype either, right? Because I remember I went out and I bought some of the where's my damn binder? But here, I went to get my binder real quick, guys. I hope this reflects well in the camera, but as you can see, I went out and bought some of those Pikachu cards when they were really cheap. You know, my binder is full of random cards that I think are cool because I like them, right? And those cards were really cheap at the time, because guess what? Their hype and their price point, they had that massive fall off. So, you know, what's the big deal? Here we are fighting for it, and unfortunately, I'm not going to. You know, I'm talking to people about getting it at a decent price for the future. I'm definitely not going to be doing this whole crazy dance of trying to buy it at hopefully 120 so I can flip it for 150 or something. Right now, like I said, we're seeing a lot more people enter the Pokemon sphere. More hoarders, we have collectors returning, new ones alike as well, player base itself. All this means that Pokemon product is just going to disappear faster than ever before, right? It's going to be harder for you to get your hands on it, and it's just going to be tough. And this reminds me, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm the first person to say this, but it reminds me of people fighting in Target and during the holidays trying to get their hands on any Pokemon product that they could. I remember Frosted Caribou made a great video on this in the past, and it's just, I just wonder if we're going back to a similar space like that, at least momentarily. And then we're entering a cycle, because if that is the case, then I don't know if history will repeat itself, but we can essentially see what's going to happen next. And for those of you that are paying attention, those of you that do care, whether you're trying to get your cards at a cheap price, a good price, or you're trying to make money from this, you know, if history repeats itself, you kind of have a cheat code right there. I don't know, guys. To close this out, it just kind of bums me out because when I see a lot of people get pushed out or leave this hobby when they could have just avoided some of the poor situations they're in, or just better manage things, that sucks. Especially because I get it, and I'm not pretending I'm not here for it, but there's money to be made here. People are in this space to make money. Not everybody, but you know, there are people trying to make money. Again, Opossum Bud showed that one guy that was essentially trying to get the first graded PSA 10 Pikachu, just because that way he's gonna make that money. And that's just the way people think about it, you know. I'm running a business, like, people want money, but there's also the collector side to it, and there's also the hopeful collectors that want to just buy singles or hope to pull stuff and then flip it and end up not making anything, and then they end up leaving. I can relate. That was me 3 years ago when my son and my wife gave me some Pokemon cards and Magic cards for my birthday, and it just kind of sparked this nostalgic feeling of, wow, this is fun. I love opening up packs. I don't even know what I'm looking at. And then I bought a bunch of product, ended up pulling terribly like I always do. And then eventually I saw a Danny Phantom video where I was so far into the red, I just thought maybe I need to start selling some of this stuff. And thanks to, you know, his knowledge and his experience, I was able to make, you know, a successful TCG player account, right? And I say it's successful for like small. It's not like I'm having thousands of sales every day, but you know, I was more focused on the 5-star aspect of it. I just really enjoyed it, knowing that what I was sending to people was delivered safely, and you know, the way I managed things with people was good. It just reminded me of a time when I had a bunch of Magic stuff and I wanted to own my own store one day, but I had to sell it due to a surgery that needed to be done. But that's a whole different story, guys. Not important. I just don't want you guys to be that guy or girl. I don't want people to end up leaving because of poor choices. So make good choices, friends. That's it. Hopefully this isn't a echo chamber video of what everybody else is saying, but if it is, oh well. I hope it helps. See you later.